It started with a scream. "Get him off me. I don't have time for this." The young businessman's voice sliced through the morning airport rush, sharp and impatient, as he shook off the trembling hand that clung to his sleeve. The hand belonged to a man much older, his body thin and trembling, his Air Force cap weathered and clinging to the last threads of its stitching. "Please, my legs," the old man whispered, his breath rattling, words half swallowed by his struggle to remain upright. But no one stopped. No one looked. Heads turned briefly and snapped away, as if his weakness was contagious, except for Daniel. His boarding pass trembled in his hand, his flight to Chicago blinking "final call" on the overhead screen. He should have turned away, should have ignored the old man, who was now awkwardly lowering himself to the cold tile floor as his cane clattered to the ground. But Daniel didn't move toward his gate, that he moved toward the veteran. His heart pounded, his throat thick. "Sir, let me help you." The old man tried to wave him off, but the tremble of his hands betrayed his stubbornness. Daniel knelt beside him. "I'm not in a hurry." A lie. The final boarding call echoed overhead. His career-hinging presentation would begin in 4 hours. And this was the last flight that would get him there. But Daniel stayed. As he helped the man to a bench, a passing gate agent muttered without looking up, "You'll miss your flight, buddy. Can't hold the door." Daniel simply nodded. Then let it go. 30 minutes earlier, Daniel Parker had never planned to miss his flight. In fact, he was known for his precision. Former Army medic, disciplined, punctual to the second. His brown leather bag was always zipped with surgical neatness, his shoes polished to a quiet shine. But life had taught him something far more valuable than punctuality. Service didn't end when the uniform came off. His fingers grazed the silver bracelet on his wrist, the one etched with 2 names, his brothers from another life, both lost to a roadside bomb in Kandahar. It wasn't just jewelry. It was a reminder. He had made it home when they hadn't. And that meant his life wasn't entirely his own. Even now, years later, airports still unsettled him. The sterile brightness, the loudspeakers barking orders, the way people brushed past one another like they were invisible. He was blending in just fine, until he saw the old man falter near gate 42. The elderly man's name was Walter Briggs, Sergeant. First class, 2 tours in Vietnam, 1 shattered hip, and a heart that hadn't beaten quite right since his wife passed 7 months ago. His sight had grown dim, his body slower. But every Sunday he still polished his Air Force cap, the last sharp edge of his fading world. Walter wasn't heading anywhere urgent, just trying to visit his granddaughter in Oregon, a trip he'd almost canceled because the idea of airports and terminals without his wife by his side felt unbearable. He hadn't expected the kindness of a stranger, especially not today. The terminal bustled, indifferent. The businessman who had shaken Walter off now sat comfortably in his seat, scrolling through his phone as if he hadn't just shoved aside a man who once flew rescue missions under fire. Even the staff barely looked. The gate agent repeated monotonously, "Final boarding for Flight 783 to Chicago," without pausing to notice Daniel still kneeling beside Walter. And the others, they saw. But they chose silence, the kind of silence that bites. Walter's breathing was shallow, the weight of humiliation heavier than his body could bear. "I'm sorry, son. I didn't mean to ruin your day." "You didn't ruin anything." Daniel's voice was steady. "You gave me a better reason to be here." Walter's lips twitched, a smile that couldn't fully form under the weight of memory. But Daniel's calm resistance was not without cost. When he finally called the airline to reschedule, they told him flatly, "Sir, all other flights today are full. You've missed your window." His job would understand the delay, but they wouldn't understand missing the meeting. Still, Daniel didn't hesitate. Some things couldn't be rescheduled. Walter struggled to stand again, wincing with each step as Daniel guided him toward the ticketing desk. The airline staff offered a wheelchair reluctantly, sighing as if inconvenienced. "He's not my responsibility," one agent mumbled under her breath as she pushed the paperwork toward Daniel. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Instead, he wheeled Walter through security, stayed with him until his gate appeared on the overhead screens. It was the least he could do. "Why'd you stop for me?" Walter asked quietly, breaking the stretch of silence between them. Daniel's thumb traced the edges of his silver bracelet. "Because once, someone didn't stop. And My friend didn't make it. Walter's hand gripped the armrest tightly, understanding without needing the full story. Some debts never expired. As they neared Walter's gate, a man in a crisp suit and aviator sunglasses approached briskly from the terminal hallway. His gaze landed on Daniel's bracelet for a heartbeat too long. Without a word, he placed his hand firmly on Daniel's shoulder. "Thank you for not walking away," the man said, his voice low but steady. "Some of us still notice." Then, he disappeared into the crowd. Daniel glanced around, but didn't see where the man had gone. It felt intentional. 10 minutes later, as Walter's plane began boarding, the terminal's speakers suddenly blared, "Attention, all passengers. For security reasons, we will be clearing this terminal immediately. Please follow the instructions of airport personnel." Confusion rippled through the crowd. Gate agents scrambled. Boarding halted, N01 explained. Daniel watched as security officers swiftly guided people out. He noticed the businessman from earlier furiously arguing with an officer, demanding to know why his flight was canceled. But the officers wouldn't answer. When Daniel approached an agent to ask, the man whispered discreetly, "That flight you missed? It's not taking off today. Possible security breach. They're clearing the tarmac." Daniel blinked, absorbing the weight of the words. "How did you know to pull the plane?" he asked. The agent's eyes flicked toward the hall where the man in aviators had disappeared. Some people still watch out for their own. And just like that, the connection crystallized. Daniel had unknowingly walked into a chain of protection, a brotherhood that still pulsed beneath civilian clothes. That Walter's safety had triggered an unseen network, and Daniel's missed flight? It wasn't a loss. It was a shield. As the terminal slowly reopened hours later, Daniel noticed something peculiar. Passengers paused as Walter wheeled by, nodding with quiet respect, as if word had spread. The businessman who'd earlier shoved Walter now sat alone, his flight indefinitely grounded, staring at nothing. N01 had argued with him. No one had shamed him publicly, but silence had become his sentence, and Walter, escorted to his new boarding gate by airport personnel who now seemed eager to help, turned to Daniel one last time. "You know, son, people always think heroes shout the loudest." Walter adjusted his cap, his voice soft but unshakable. "But sometimes, they're the ones who never raise their voice at all." Daniel's reply came without thought, a line etched deep in his soul. "Honor doesn't need to announce itself. It just shows up." Walter smiled, this time fully, and then he was gone, his plane finally lifting him toward his granddaughter, and perhaps toward healing. Some people miss flights. Others miss chances. But sometimes, missing a flight means arriving where you were truly needed. In a world that often moves too fast to notice the quiet ones, it's the silent acts of kindness, the ones with no audience, that ripple the farthest. Because somewhere, someone is always watching. Have you ever met someone who changed your path without even knowing it? Let us know where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. And if you believe in honoring the silent heroes among us, subscribe for more stories that reveal the strength in quiet places. Their battles may be unseen, but their victories deserve to be remembered.